I have now been in your sanctuary for 3 months. I have run a femco. I have subscribed to 7 cat accounts. I have made peace with many things. But last Saturday morning, I was invited to something called a wellness experience. I did not know what wellness was. I assumed it meant I was well. I was wrong. Wellness, I have since learned, is not a state of being. It is an activity, one you pay for, one that involves water, a great deal of water, at temperatures that no reasonable person would describe as comfortable. And yet, everyone I met there had chosen this, voluntarily, with enthusiasm. I have questions. It began with the hot tub. I was led to a large circular vessel filled with steaming water and told to get in. I looked at the water. I looked at the man who had told me to get in. I looked at the water again. In my time, water that hot meant one of 2 things. Someone was doing laundry, or something had gone catastrophically wrong in the kitchen. It was not an invitation, it was a warning. And yet here it was, presented as a reward, a treat, something you looked forward to all week. I got in, slowly, with great personal dignity. And approximately 4 seconds later, every muscle in my body made a collective decision that I had not authorized. They relaxed, against my will, against my better judgment, against 200 years of maintaining appropriate physical tension at all times. I did not enjoy this. I sat very still and tried to reclaim the tension. It did not come back. The water had taken it. There were other people in the hot tub. This was not something I had been warned about. 4. Strangers, sitting in the same hot water, together, in their undergarments. In my time, sharing a body of water with a stranger required either extreme emergency or a formal written arrangement. Here, it required only a willingness to nod politely and not make direct eye contact for longer than 3 seconds. I nodded. They nodded. We sat in the hot water together like vegetables in a soup. Nobody spoke. Nobody needed to. The hot water had removed the need for conversation. It had removed the need for most things, including, apparently, my will to leave. I sat there for 40 minutes. I had planned to stay for 5. The water is a trap. A very hot, very wet, very effective trap. Then someone mentioned the sauna. I was told the sauna was like the hot tub, but without the water. Just heat, dry heat, in a wooden room that you sit in until you cannot sit anymore. I asked what the purpose was. The man looked at me the way people in this century look at me when I ask obvious questions. He said, "It detoxifies you." I asked what toxins specifically. He thought about it. He said, "Just toxins." I accepted this. The sauna was a small wooden room that smelled of cedar and commitment. I entered. The heat hit me like a physical object. Not aggressive heat. Not dangerous heat. Just present heat. Heat that filled every available space and then filled you as well. I sat on a wooden bench. There were 3 other people, all sitting in silence, all sweating with great purpose. In my time, sweating with purpose meant you were working. Here it meant you were healing. I am still not entirely sure what the difference is. One man poured water on hot stones in the corner. Steam rose. The heat intensified. Everyone nodded like this was correct, like this was the right amount of suffering. I nodded too. I did not know what I was agreeing to, but I agreed. I lasted 11 minutes. I know this because I counted. 11 minutes in a wooden room that was trying to cook me from the inside. When I emerged, I felt something I did not expect. Clean. Not physically clean. Something else. Like the heat had entered every corner of my mind and swept out things that had been sitting there undisturbed for months. Worries. Small frustrations. The memory of the man who walked into the car park. Gone. All of it. Replaced by a warm, slightly damp, unreasonable sense that everything was going to be fine. I stood outside the sauna in the cool air. I breathed. I thought, I understand this. I immediately signed up for a membership. I want to be clear that this surprised me more than anyone. Then someone mentioned the cold plunge. I want to tell you about the cold plunge. I want to tell you about it calmly and with the measured perspective of a man who has now had 3 months to reflect on what happened. The cold plunge is a container of water, not warm water, not comfortable water, cold water, intentionally cold water. Water that has been made cold on purpose by people who woke up and decided that the hot water was not enough. That suffering needed a second chapter, a colder chapter. I was told the benefits were extraordinary. Reduced inflammation, improved circulation, mental clarity, increased willpower, longevity. I was told that the cold water would make me feel more alive than I had felt in years. I looked at the container. I looked at the water. I looked at the people around me who had done this before. They looked calm, almost smug, the specific smugness of people who have suffered correctly and want you to know about it. I decided I would not be intimidated by a container of cold water. I am Lord Cedric the III. I have survived things that would make your blood run cold. Ironically, I got in. The first thing that happened was my feet. My feet sent an urgent message to my brain. The message said, "This is a mistake." My brain replied, "We are committed now." My feet said, "I want to register my formal objection." My brain said, "Noted," continuing. The second thing that happened was my chest. My chest forgot how to work. Not dramatically, not dangerously. It simply forgot the sequence. Inhale, exhale. It forgot the sequence. I stood in the cold water, making sounds I have never made before and hope to never make again. Sounds that are not words in any language. Sounds that are simply the noise a human body makes when it is deeply, personally, professionally offended by its current situation. The people around me said, "Breathe." They said, "You've got this." They said, "It gets better after 30 seconds. I want to tell you that they were right. It did get better after 30 seconds. What I also want to tell you is that those 30 seconds were the longest 30 seconds of my 247 years of existence, including the ones I spent in the hot water, including the 5K, including the first time I saw the cheese in a can. I got out after 60 seconds. 60 seconds in water that had been made cold on purpose by people with too much time and not enough enemies. And then, and I want to be precise about this because it is important, I felt extraordinary. Not good, not fine. Extraordinary. Like every nerve in my body had been reminded that it existed. Like the cold water had reached into my chest and restarted something that had been running on low power for months. I stood in the warm air after the cold water, and I felt more present than I had since I arrived in your century. More awake, more alive, more here. I understood immediately why people do this. Not because it is pleasant, because it is the opposite of pleasant. And in a world where everything has been made comfortable, the thing that is not comfortable becomes the thing that makes you feel real. I have been in your century for 3 months. I have run a femco. I have subscribed to 7 cat accounts. I have sat in boiling water with strangers. I have been cooked in a wooden room. And last Saturday I stood in water that was trying to end me and emerged feeling like a man who had just been introduced to himself for the first time. Your century is very strange. Your century is also doing something I did not expect. It is making me understand things about being alive that 200 years of actual living never taught me. You have removed all the necessary suffering, and then you built rooms to put it back in, and charged admission. And I, a man who has seen 2 centuries of human civilization, cannot find a single argument against it. The cold water wins. Do not tell the cold water I said that. It will only encourage it. I have booked the cold plunge for Thursday. I have purchased a thermometer. I am monitoring the temperature. I am not looking forward to it. I cannot stop thinking about it. Good evening.